everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. In this video, we're going to cover several different things. Today is Israel's Independence Day on the Hebrew calendar. So I want to talk about that. There's a few stories here I want to go over. I want to talk about a concept called the fig tree generation. You may have heard of this if you listen to other Christian podcasts or YouTube channels. This is kind of like a big concept among the watcher community, among evangelicals and non-denominationals and so on and so forth. And so I wanted to take a look at that. Also, there's a few interesting things that have popped up on the church news website and on President Nelson's social media account that I want to take a look at and analyze. So there's a lot to cover and a lot of interesting things. So first, we're just going to start with this. This is Israel 365. And it says, on Israel's Independence Day, lawmaker calls to build third temple. Now, this character, this kid right here has shown up he's shown up another time on the channel. We were reading about him, Ben Gvir. He is kind of a little bit, you might say, extreme. Anyway, let's read what he did this time. On Thursday, that's today, Knesset member Itar Ben Gvir, Jewish Power. I don't know what that means, but if that's like his party or anyway, Jewish Power, entered the Temple Mount on Israel's 74th Independence Day. Now, just so you know, I did look to see if there's any kind of significance anywhere about the number 74. It doesn't seem like there is. There definitely is with 70, right? I'm not going to go into all that, but we know that 70 is it's almost like 17 in a way, because 17 is 7 plus 10, whereas 7D is 7 times 10. So, we have the 70, among the general authorities, and there's stuff like that. 74, I haven't really been able to come up with anything. If you add 7 and 4 together, you get 11, and 11 seems to be kind of a special number, but again, I don't really want to get into that on this one. Let's take a look at the Jewish calendar, though, the Hebrew calendar. So today is May 5th. Okay, May 5th, here we are, and on the calendar you can see Yom Ha'atzmaut. This is Israeli Independence Day, okay? And again, that's according to the Hebrew calendar, whereas on the Gregorian calendar, it is May 14th. So May 14th is Israel's birthday on the Gregorian calendar. The State of Israel was created in 1948, May 14th. So let's go back to the Hebrew calendar. Today is the 19th day of the Omer count, as we're counting up to 50, which will lead us to Pentecost, or Shavuot, or the Feast of Weeks, the Feast of the Harvest. It has all those names, which seems to be, I don't know, it's interesting, but we've talked about that a lot as well. You'll just have to go back and watch all my videos. I have a playlist called Judaism. I also have a playlist called Israel, Jerusalem, Judaism. So you can go watch those, and we really cover these topics pretty heavily, and there's going to be so much more to learn about it as we do this study together. Anyway, so today, Hebrew calendar, it's Israel's Independence Day. Let's go back here and let's see what Ben Gvir did. During his visit, Ben Gvir said, quote, "The time has come to build a Jewish synagogue on the Temple Mount," end quote. Building the third temple is a commandment incumbent upon the Jewish people, as written in the book of Exodus. This is Exodus 25:8. "And let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them." The question that I have, though, is, according to Judaism, why does it have to be in the exact same spot? Now, I know within our own church, in modern times, it does seem like there are specific places where temples are supposed to be built. So maybe that's why. Maybe it's just simply it's a holy place. That's where it's supposed to be built. There's no questions. That's probably the answer. But you think about the Salt Lake Temple, Brigham Young. put his cane down and is like, this is the spot right here, and that's where they actually made the Salt Lake Temple. Um, and there's other stories, there's other things, but um, anyway, again, I don't want to get too much into this controversy, but there is a theory out there that the original temple wasn't actually. Let me show you here. Let's see, Jerusalem. Let's go to the map. Let's go to satellite view. Okay. Now let's come down here and let's look at the Temple Mount. So the majority view is that the temple is supposed to be built right here on the Temple Mount, right? That's why it's called the Temple Mount. The other theory holds that the temple was actually down here in this little. Basically, it's called the City of David, but it's the size of like a neighborhood. Um, and I've seen that theory, and I feel like it holds a lot of weight, but I guess it hasn't convinced the rabbis that that's where it should be. So I mean, I don't know. But the one thing that makes a lot of sense to me in that theory is that you have the fortress Antonia, which was the Roman fortress that was, I think it was north and a little bit east of the temple, or maybe it was just directly north. I'm not sure. And it was large enough to house, excuse me, to house a Roman division. I don't know how large a Roman division is. I know how large a division is in the United States Army, and if it's at all similar, then it has to be quite a large area. When you look at the Temple Mount right here, okay, uh, and I want to do a separate video about this. I'm not, again, I don't have too strong of an opinion when it comes to where the temple was, but when you look at the size of the Temple Mount, oh gosh, let me refresh this. When you look at the size of the Temple Mount, it does seem like that's maybe the right size to house a Roman division. When you look at models, like little scale models, that there was one in the North Visitor Center of Temple Square in Salt Lake. There's also a large one in Jerusalem, and it's pretty large. I can't remember where it's at, but anyway, they have the Fortress Antonia like up here, and it's like only like this big. It's like really small, and to house a division, it has to be a pretty large area. It's basically it's a military base, and just like all military bases, from what I understand, it was like a little city. It had like little um, places to eat, mess halls or chow halls or whatever you want to think of, and just like different facilities. So it kind of makes sense to me just that alone, that this probably was the Fortress Antonia. But anyway, I don't have a strong opinion about that really. I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate. Anyway, that's kind of beside the point. Um, okay, let's go back here. So before ascending the mount, Ben Gavir emphasized the importance of visiting the Temple Mount, writing, quote, Jews ascending the Temple Mount today proves that Hamas is an organization of pushovers that will easily surrender. um, I mean, I don't know about that, but I think that's kind of wishful thinking. On Israel's 74th Independence Day, it's important that government officials remember that we are an independent nation. So the one thing that confuses me, and I'm no expert, let's go back to the map. Jerusalem. The thing that I don't really understand is that during the 6-Day War, they annexed the entire city. You know, they annexed the eastern part of the city, and there's like a famous quote that it's like the Temple Mount is ours. Let's see, Israeli history, the Temple Mount is ours. It's like something like that. Let me see if I can find it. It's like once they won the war, that became like a thing. Oh, here it is. Gur radioed headquarters. The Temple Mount is in our hands. There it is right there. And that's the Atlantic. Let's see. The Temple Mount, or the Temple Mount is in our hands right here. So, anyway, the thing that kind of confuses me is like, it would have been much easier for them. And I'm just, I'm not saying that this is our LDS point of view. It's not. But if you were a Jew back then would have been the right time, I think, to have like completely taken this over the Temple Mount, right? I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I don't know if they are successful in building the third temple. I don't know if it's going to be next to the Dome of the Rock. I don't know if somehow the Dome of the Rock is going to be destroyed. I know that there's been people that have talked about that. Um, so I don't know how it would happen if it does happen, but I'm kind of confused why they didn't do it back then, especially since they had just had a couple successful wars. The War of Independence, when they were immediately attacked by all the different surrounding countries, and then the 6 Day War. So they were like, they had a pretty good track record. And so I just wonder why they didn't do something back then, because now there's been all this time for everybody to stew about it and get defensive about it. Whereas if this much time had passed by, had they just done it in the first place, then it'd be interesting to see where we would be right now. Holy cow, look at this. This is highway or road 417. 417, and it goes by the Garden of Gethsemane. It goes by the Garden of Gethsemane. 417. Sorry, if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you're new to the channel, I've done a number of videos about 17. Go see my playlist called Symbolism, or just watch my last couple videos where we've talked about 17 quite a bit. Holy cow, I did not realize that. Let's look at the street view. Tez Tor. Anyway, the Garden of Gethsemane is like up over here, and this road is called 417. Holy cow. That is crazy. That was not... I did not expect for that to happen today. Okay, so now I'm all lost. Where... It doesn't matter. We're done talking about this, I think. Okay, here it is. Anyway, okay, so let's go back here. Israel has prevented any effort to build a temple on the holy site for fear of Arab backlash. Instead, the Jewish pilgrims visiting the Mount are forced to settle for silent prayer, an act recently allowed by the police station there. Ben-Gvir was among the more controversial members of the Knesset, causing a storm when he decided to move his headquarters to the Arab-occupied Jerusalem neighborhood of Shimon HaTzadik. Ben-Gvir called for full Israeli control over the holy site in the past. In his opening speech in the Knesset, Ben-Gvir lamented the hesitancy of the Israeli government to assert full sovereignty over Jerusalem, and more specifically, the Temple Mount, saying, quote, "I will act to ensure that Israeli control returns to Jerusalem, into the Temple Mount specifically." All right, so that's the story. So Ben, doesn't he look intense? Ben-Gvir. So I mean, I don't know. This might just be typical Ben-Gvir. I don't know if how many people follow him or how influential he is. But he does make headlines. Okay, let's go to the next one. Now, an interesting thing. Let's go back to the idea of the fig tree generation. So the idea is, okay, let's go to Matthew. Okay, Matthew 24. Okay, now look at this through Protestant or evangelical eyes. Okay, and this is typically what they do. I'm not saying all of evangelicals. I'm talking about mostly the watcher community within the evangelical movement. So verse 32, it says, "Now learn a parable of the fig tree. When his branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, ye know that summer is nigh." And just as a side note, see, here's some of that summer imagery, comparing the second coming to the summer, which is one reason why I'm looking at Shavuot, the Feast of Weeks, possibly as being a key date or a time when something may happen, like Adam on Diamond or something, just because the first three feast days are here. They're in April. They're like usually April or March. They're solidly within spring, but 50 days later, after first fruits, you have Shavuot, which is late spring or early summer. See, so out of the 7 Jewish feast days, you have the spring ones, you have the 3 fall ones, um, but Shavuot is different from all of them because it's basically in early summer. Sometimes late spring. It just depends. So let's go back here. Okay, anyway, so likewise ye, when ye shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all things be fulfilled. So what they do is they look at the fig tree and they say, okay, Israel is the fig tree. And it's true. Israel a lot of times is compared to fig trees. There's also the olive tree. There's a lot of different things, but fig trees is one of the things that Israel as a nation is compared to. So they look at they look at when Israel became a nation, 1948 on the Gregorian calendar, and then they say, okay, so how long is a generation? Because this is when the fig tree came back, right? That's when Israel became a nation again for the first time in about 2,000 years. So they're like, okay, so 1948, now how long is a generation? And they look at this is typically what they'll look at for that definition. They'll go to Psalms 90. Psalm 90 is a prayer of Moses, the man of God. God is from everlasting to everlasting. Man's days last but 70 years. Moses implores the Lord to give mercy and blessing to his people. And in verse 10, it says, the days of our years are 60 years and 10, right? So 3 times 20 plus 10, 70. And if by reason by strength, they be 80 years. So 80 years instead of 70 years, if by strength. Yet is their strength labor and sorrow, for it is soon cut off, and we fly away. Okay, so they're looking at this as the definition of a generation. Even though it's kind of like talking about like an individual's lifetime, but whatever. I'm not like pushing this point of view. This is what they look at. There are different places in the scriptures that kind of like define um, age, right? One of them. So and it's kind of interesting. I want to look into this further, but so here in this psalm, it's saying 70 to 80 years. In Genesis, you have in chapter 6, verse 3. This is the sons of God marry daughters of men. Men turn to wickedness. The earth is filled with violence, and all flesh is corrupted. The flood is promised. Okay, so this is the context. And in verse 3, it says, and the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh. Yet his days shall be 120 years. Okay, 120 years. Which is, it's important to know that because let's do LDS Old Testament timeline. I always like bringing this up. This is one of my favorite graphics. Okay. So here, I used to have this in bookmark form when I was in high school, and I used it as a bookmark for my scriptures. It was a nice little kind of like a card. Anyway, so we all know that in the early days, for whatever reason, and Bruce R. McConkie, I think he was the one that said that most likely it's just because in those early days, the full effects of sin had not really taken effect, which it seems like sin literally affects our bodies and makes it so that we die. I mean, it is affirmed in the scriptures that that's the case. Um, in a certain way. So anyway, so you had the patriarchs and everyone living back then. Adam was 930 years old. Seth, the same thing. Noah was 950. Uh, and then you get down here, you have Shem and Japheth and Ham, and they all lived for a really long time. And then once you get down here, around this time after the flood, that's when everyone has what we typically think of as normal lifespans, right? Now, I did I did pull up a Wikipedia article that has all the oldest living people on record. So this may not have, obviously we don't have the record of every single person that's ever lived, but from everyone that we do have, the longest living person of all time that we know of was Jean Calment. She died in 1997 and she was 122 years old, and she was from France. Okay. She's the only one that appears to have gone beyond 120 years old. So, and again, like I've said before so many times, when it comes to numbers in the Bible, sometimes they're literal, sometimes they're symbolic, or sometimes they're kind of a mix of the two. They're both. In this case, we have a person that lived to 122 years old, but that's pretty close to 120. Maybe the Lord wasn't going to say, you know, uh, and his days shall be limited to 122 years old. Maybe it's just like saying 120 is enough. It's a nice clean number. I don't get too caught up into that. I know some people do, but I don't care. As you can see though here, it is pretty remarkably accurate though, because no one else aside from her made it past 120. You have a bunch of 119s, 118, 117s, so on and so forth. And by the way, it's interesting because the oldest living people, all 10 of them, they're all female. They're all female. And then it breaks it down between men and women. And for men, the oldest living man was 116 years old, and he was from Japan. So, did I just see Israel? Oh, yeah, look at that. In the number 10 spot for men, Yisrael Crystal, 113 years old. Yeah, yeah. Okay. So let's go back here. And then I wanted to clarify here's like another place where we're talking about age and stuff like that. Um, but because I zoomed in, it messed everything up. Gosh dang it. Oh, no, it's right here. Okay, age of a tree. This is in Doctrine and Covenants, section 101. And it says this is talking about the what things are going to be like in the millennium. Okay, the millennium. It's interesting because in the millennium, if we go back to this timeline, we know that we're going back to the paradisiacal state of the earth. But in the millennium, we're not going to have these like really long lifespans, but we're not going to die either. So, as far as our mortal state goes, according to Doctrine and Covenants, it says here that in that day an infant shall not die until he is old, and his life shall be as the age of a tree. And when you click on the footnote, it takes you to Isaiah, which says it's basically talking about the same thing. It says, there shall be no more thence an infant of days, nor an old man that hath not filled his days. For the child shall die 100 years old, but the sinner 100 years old shall be accursed. So again, I don't know necessarily that that's literal, that it has to be exactly 100 years old, just like how we have Jean Clement or Calment that lived to 122. Maybe it's just kind of like a average number. So I'm not going to lose sleep over it. But here's another time that we're talking about age being limited. So after the flood, 120 years, after the millennium, it seems 100 years, and then you go from translated directly to resurrection. There's no more death in the traditional sense. So these are interesting things. And then for some reason in Psalm 90, it's talking about our days being either 70 and then if by strength 80. Uh, I don't think that we should like cling on to these too tightly, but it is interesting to note. So, okay, so this is what they do. So they look at Israel and they're like, wow, so Israel had its 70th birthday in 2018, which is interesting because that's the year that President Nelson became prophet of the church, the president. Uh, Gosh, it's just there's you guys there's so many things. It's just it's too much. The timing, all the different times and the things that are synchronizing together, it's too much. I think we really are in that time. Now, okay. Now, you can't look at just Matthew 24 because we know that we have Joseph Smith Matthew, which is essentially Joseph Smith translation of this chapter, and this is an important one. It's one of the more important ones that have to do with the second coming in the New Testament, um, aside from like the entire book of Revelation. So the thing that you'll notice when we go to Matthew or Joseph Smith Matthew, okay, notice how I color coded this in uh, the King James version. You have right here, I color coded this blue, talking about the fig tree. And then I color coded the part talking about a generation in red. Okay. So fig tree blue, generation red. If you come over here, he changes up the order of things. So first you have red, and it gives all the different signs of things that are going to happen, the signs of the times. And then after red, then it's blue. So it's reverse. So what does that mean? Well, let me show you. Okay, so I'm just going to read. Let me just make sure. Okay, so I'm just going to read some stuff here. For in those days there shall also arise false Christs and false prophets, and it shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if possible they should deceive the very elect. We have a definition of this. We got it, if I remember right, it was Harold B. Lee. He defined what this is. We've done a lot of talking about the Antichrist as like a singular Antichrist that will appear in the last days, which I can't find anything within our doctrine that supports that idea. I think that that's been imported from other churches. And I'm actually going to do another video, a very interesting thing that somebody shared with me from the Millennial Star that just like defines it even more, but that'll be for another video. Anyway, wars and rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled. Okay, right now we see a war that I kind of doubt, but could escalate to a world war, to World War III. But be not troubled. Okay, he says, for all I have told you must come to pass, but the end is not yet. But we know that these things, even though they're terrible, there is a silver lining, and that is that the time is coming soon, that this is all going to be done, and we're going to move into the millennium. So anyway, moving on, wars and rumors of wars again, and then nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. Iniquity shall abound. The love of men shall wax cold. Uh, this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world. The abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet be fulfilled, meaning the destruction of Jerusalem, the city. The sun shall be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken. Verily I say unto you, this generation in which these things have shone forth shall not pass away, until all I have told you shall be fulfilled. So you see here in the Joseph Smith Matthew, there's a disconnect. The this generation is referring to the generation that sees all these different things. Okay, it's not related to the fig tree. When you go down, then he talks about, now learn a parable of the fig tree. When its branches are yet tender and it brings forth leaves, you know that summer is nigh. So likewise, mine elect, when they shall see all these things, they shall know that he is near, even at the doors. So I'm not necessarily saying that the fig tree idea is wrong, but it's interesting that in the Joseph Smith Matthew, the two things aren't so closely associated, or they're not so close together in the text. An interesting thing here, you see how I have mine elect highlighted in Joseph Smith, or in the King James version, it just says, "So likewise ye, when ye see these things." But in the Joseph Smith Matthew, it specifies not just you, everybody, but mine elect. So likewise, mine elect, when they shall see these things, they shall know that it is near, even at the doors. And I do tend to think that it's the elect. I'm not trying to be prideful or beat my own drum, but I feel like those that are more spiritually in tune, those that are um, the righteous, they're looking forward to these things. They're watching for it because they know it's going to be a good thing. Whereas people that are more spiritually dead inside, or more worldly minded, they're not. Uh, Either they may consciously be avoiding these things, they don't want to think about it, or it may just not be on their radar at all, just because their minds are so caught up in the world and they're playing the game. So I think it's interesting that in the Joseph Smith Matthew it says, "Mine elect, when they shall see these things, they shall know that it is near." And again, you contrast that with those that are not watching. You look at the foolish virgins; they don't know that it's near, and they don't know that it's at the doors. They're not even thinking about it. So anyway, you can think about this how you want as far as like the fig tree generation, but I tend I think that there still could be something to it, but I'm not going to hold on to that too tightly, like I said. But it's interesting to contrast Matthew 24 and Joseph Smith Matthew. Now, in regards to all these things up here in the red, earthquakes, the sun, the moon, all that stuff. One thing that stood out was this: the stars shall fall from heaven. Because I recently did a video, I did this video, when General Conference declares prophecy is fulfilled. It was one of my longer videos, an hour, look at that, an hour and 7 minutes. Um, I just went over, sorry, I don't know why. I went over talk after talk after talk after talk. Um, when it's talked about in General Conference that these things have already happened, that they've been fulfilled. Um, it's been said so many times in conference, so many times. Watch this video if you haven't already. I found, now I wanted to look and see, because I was like, well, I don't remember finding anybody talking about the stars falling. Because what does it say again? Let's go back here. It says, and the stars shall fall from heaven. Now, I do have a playlist called Signs in the Heavens, where we've talked about notable um, meteors that have fallen to Earth. Recently, in Russia, we had the Chelyabinsk meteor that actually caused damage. It had the force of, I can't remember how many nuclear bombs. It exploded in the air. And, because when you're thinking about stars falling from heaven, that can mean like basically one of two things in my mind. Either that's talking about meteors, shooting stars, things like that, like some kind of like uptick or higher frequency of that happening, um, or it means that the Earth is literally being taken out of its place, and you see stars falling because the Earth is moving to some other location. Those, in my mind, that's always been like the two things. I do tend to think that it mostly has to do with meteors, shooting stars, stuff like that. And there have in this dispensation there have been some pretty notable ones, but just go watch that playlist. Um, there was the when was it? I think it was like the early 1900s. Maybe it was the late 1890s. I don't know. there was like the Tunguska event. I think that's what it's called, and it was huge. It exploded and it knocked all the trees in a pattern to where you could tell that there was like a center point and all the trees were knocked down, falling away from the explosion. So anyway, I think the stars have been falling from heaven, but I wanted to look this up. I went to the scripture citation index. I looked up that phrase, stars shall fall from heaven. It's been mentioned 3 times in General Conference. And in this one, Harold B. Lee, he says that it's happened. He goes through here, he reads from the scriptures, um, Joseph Smith Matthew, here's the stars shall fall from heaven and everything else. And then he says, oops, that was zoomed in too far. He says, brothers and sisters, this is the day the Lord is speaking of. This talk is being given in October 1973. October 1973. Brothers and sisters, this is the day the Lord is speaking of. You see the signs are here. Be ye therefore ready. The brethren have told you in this conference how to prepare to be ready. We have never had a conference where there's been such direct instruction, so much admonition, when the problems have been defined, and also the solution to the problem has been suggested. Now that makes me want to read more of this October 1973 General Conference. I didn't know that he said this, so I may just do that in future videos. But you can see that between this video that I did and this talk, and I didn't even cover it all. I didn't even cover it all. There's too much to put in a video. If I did that, the video would probably go on for like 5 hours, if not more. But if you're reading Joseph Smith Matthew or Matthew 24, and you're like, oh, when's this going to happen? Oh, the moon is going to be darkened and it's going to be like incredible. No, it's already happened. It's happened. We're here. This is what it looks like. The last days when all these things happen. This is it. This is what it looks like. It's happening right now. So anyway, okay, so let's move on from that. What are we doing now? Let's see. Okay, let's go over here. Now, for a while there, I was watching what was going on in Israel as far as like violence goes, and between police and Palestinians and stuff like that. And it seemed like, they really wanted things to take off, but it didn't really. It just kind of fizzled out. That's why I haven't done a video about it for a while, because there's not a whole lot's going on. There's still some like minor things going on. There were some rocket attacks, but nothing like crazy like last year when there was like that 11-day war. Today there's a story. It says clashes break out as nearly 1,000 Jews visit Temple Mount on Independence Day. Dozens of rioters threw stones and other items at police officers securing Jewish group visits to the Temple Mount, lightly injuring one. There was an attack on a security guard for one of the Jewish settlements, but it really hasn't escalated to what some were fearing. It does seem like things are still kind of simmering, but it's not too. As of right now, it's still not that bad. It's not as bad as it could be. And again, I've talked about before how like when Jews ascend the Temple Mount, I used to have the belief that like during certain days and hours they could just like go up and walk wherever they wanted to, but no, it's during certain days and certain hours they go up, but it's part of a guided. It's not really a tour so much as an escort. Like they stay in a group, the police are with them, and they walk around this one path that goes around the Temple Mount. So anyway, that's what it means when Jews go up there. And there have been record numbers of Jews doing this. I've done videos about that before, so you can go check that out in my playlist called either like I have one called Jerusalem, I have another one called Israel, Jerusalem, Judaism. Just go to one of those two, and if you're interested. But So we have this going on. This is today on Israel's Independence Day on the Hebrew calendar. Over here, Israel celebrates 74th Independence Day with flyovers, barbecues, and Bible quiz, which is interesting. I didn't know that they did barbecue. I mean, I of course, like it's not like it's just America, but it sounds like a very American thing to do. Of course, no hot dogs, but I'm sure that they're having a really good burgers. Maybe I don't know. What are they barbecuing? I don't know. Um, okay, so they're celebrating that today. Okay, now moving on to our church. President Nelson today, he did a post on his social media that had to do with the National Day of Prayer. And what I was interested in was the pictures. I was interested in these pictures here because what you have is you have President Nelson with Muslims, and I have a playlist called Islam. Go watch it because there's been a lot more focus from the church on Muslims and Islam within the last few years. They came out with a pamphlet. Um, it was introduced by Elder Bednar and Elder Gong at BYU. And we've talked about the fact that as we approach the millennium, okay, it's not just going to be us that makes it through to the millennium. There's going to be all religions still. It's just that it's anyone that's living a telestial life is not going to be there, but everyone that is living good, upright lives of other religions, they're going to be there. And Muslims account for 1/4, well, almost 1/4 of the world's population. So let's just pretend that uh, the burning happens, the wicked are removed from the earth, and let's say that the proportions are still roughly the same. Which I don't know if that's going to be the case, but I wouldn't be surprised either. So that would mean that still in that day, in the millennial day, after the wicked are gone, you're still going to have like 1 in 4 people on Earth that are Muslim. So it's going to be important because we read that quote from Joseph Fielding Smith saying that there's never going to be such a need as there is in the first part of the millennium for missionary work. Uh, it's going to be intense. There's going to be a lot of people that want to join the church. There's going to be a lot of missionary work that's done. I tend to think that that could be what this big push was this last conference, calling for people to go on missions. The first 2 sessions of conference was all about go on a mission. If you're of age, if you're thinking about it, sisters, if you're being inspired, do it. If you're a senior couple and you feel like you want to do a mission, do a mission. I've never seen anything like it. Now, I don't know that it has to do with the millennium. It could have to do with maybe the final push before the second coming. I don't know. Only time will tell. But Muslims are really important. They are a special people. They are from the family of Abraham. The traditional view is that they're descended from Ishmael, which was Abraham's first son with Hagar. So, anyway, so you have this picture of him shaking hands with these Muslim guys. He included a picture from the Paradise, California fire. And if you'll remember, he included a picture of this same location in his Come Follow Me talk where he said that time is running out. Which that talk, uh, it was basically like, hey, do we all remember what's going to happen at the quote unquote end of the world when the Savior comes? Yeah, the world's going to be burned. Look at this picture. Look at this picture of a burned city. This is what a burned city looks like. And then at the end of his talk, he says, time is running out. He says people that have distanced themselves from the church or those that are in the church that haven't really gained their own testimony, do it now. Time is running out. And then anyway, those two just kind of stood out to me. I don't want to analyze this too far, but I mean, he would have chosen this. You know, he probably would have said to whoever manages his account, like, "Hey, I want this picture and that picture." I don't know. I'm pretty sure that he chose these pictures. Um, okay, so National Prayer Day. What is that all about? Okay, National Prayer Day. Someone in the comments, um, well, someone in the comments said that this is the 70th year. of National Prayer Day, and that's true. It was enacted in 1952, and as of right now, it looks like the way that it's observed, it's the first Thursday in May. So that's why today is National Prayer Day, and this is the 70th anniversary. It just so happens that it's in the year 2022 when all these crazy things are happening that we've been talking about, all these different numbers, times, synchronicities. I don't know. This is another one, and President Nelson is observing it on his social media. If you go to the church newsroom, the top picture is him. I don't know. I don't think this is the same group. Is it the same group of Muslim guys? It might be. Yeah, it looks like it probably is. I'd say, and by the way, if I was Muslim, I think that I would go with, um, if it's a choice and not just like a tradition of certain types of Muslims, I would go with this cap right here. I like this one. Not so much these like flat top ones, but this one that's kind of like a fusion of like just the round. You can see that it has kind of like this flat thing that goes around the crown of the head, and then the top is round. I think I would go with this, and I would grow a beard just like that as well. Okay, so this is the top picture right now. So just more putting it out there that we're trying to establish relations with Muslims. It's important. It's important. And then not only that, but down here, the bottom left story, it says Sikh leaders from Dubai meet with First Presidency. Now, Sikhism is not, even though they wear the turbans, people that don't know geography or don't know history, they don't know different cultures, they always think that this is like these are Muslims, but they're not. They're Sikhs. They wear these turbans because essentially in their religion they believe that hair is a gift from God, so it shouldn't be cut, and so they wrap it up with turbans. That's what they do. I mean, I may be kind of like butchering that. It's probably more complicated than that, but that's that's the emphasis, right? Sikhs are mostly from, let's go back to the map. If you come over to India and you go to the Punjab region, which is like up here. In fact, I bet I could, let's see, Punjab, India. There's Punjab, India, and Pakistan, but it's like on the border of India and Pakistan. This is like this is their Utah. Okay, this is where there's the highest concentration. This is where it comes from. So, what's going on with that? Two prominent Sikh leaders in the Middle East recently visited the global headquarters of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Salt Lake City, Utah. Surinder Singh, I've heard this pronounced sign or sing, so I don't, please spare me the lecturing about how that's supposed to be pronounced. The two big names for them are Sign or Singh and Patel. And anyway, I'm not going to go into all that, but Surinder Singh Kandahari and Bubble. Sorry. Sorry, inappropriate humor or inappropriate laughter. Why did it have to be these names? Surinder Singh Kandahari and Bubbles Kandahari met with the church's first presidency on Friday at April 29th, 2022. The Kandaharis described their meeting with President Russell M. Nelson, President Dallin H. Oaks, and President Henry B. Eyring as warm and hospitable. Also attending the meeting was Elder David A. Bednar of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles and Elder Jeffrey H. Singer of the Middle East Africa North Area Presidency, and his wife Sandra. Bubbles Kandahari said the experience left her speechless. Okay, so this is Bubbles right here. Okay. Honey, please, I'm trying not to. There are no words to describe how much love is there between all of you and how much love you have given us. She said, it was amazing, and we are really happy and honored to be here. Let's look at some of these pictures up close. Oh, you can just, okay, never mind. Okay, so there's her. They're sitting at the conference table. Okay, a group picture. Bread. Waving. Okay, he looks very happy, and so does she. Sikhs, by the way, just a little bit more background. Sikhism is a religion and philosophy founded in the Punjab region of the Indian subcontinent in the late 15th century. Its members are known as Sikhs. The Sikhs call their faith Gurmat, Punjabi, the way of the Guru. And it talks about how there were 10 gurus. Okay, all 10 human gurus, Sikhs believe, were inhabited by a single spirit. Upon the death of the 10th guru, Gobind Singh, in 1666 to 1708, the spirit of the eternal guru transferred itself to the sacred scripture of Sikhism, Guru Granth Sahib, the Granth as the Guru, also known as the Adi Granth, first volume, which thereafter was regarded as the sole Guru. Now, this, you may have heard about this before. So this is basically their book of scripture, essentially, and they treat it as though it's a living thing. Like they'll put fans on it. In fact, let me see. The Guru Granth Sahib. I just want to see if we can get see any pictures of it. Yeah, anyway, I'm not going to get what I was thinking. But anyway, so they believe that the Guru spirit is in there. Wow, that is a big Granth Guru or whatever it's called. It's huge. It's gigantic. Okay, so there are nearly 25 million Sikhs worldwide. So that's more than Judaism. There's more Sikhs than there are Jews. So it's nowhere near the, on the level of like Christianity or Islam, which are in the billions. But 25 million, that's still a very large number. Okay, now Sikhs claim that their tradition has always been separate from Hinduism. Nevertheless, many Western scholars argue that in its earliest stage, Sikhism was a movement within the Hindu tradition. Nanak, they point out, was raised a Hindu and eventually belonged to the Sant tradition of northern India, a movement associated with the great poet and mystic Kabir. Okay, and it's also been said that there's been some Islam that's kind of been fused into it, but not. I mean, just there's debate about that. So anyway, why am I looking at this? Did we massive bronze door turning left on the Temple Mount? Whatever. Okay, so we're pretty much done. So that's the news for today. I just want to note the more reaching out and putting out there in imagery that we're trying to reach out to Muslims and also Sikhs and to everybody. Different religions are going to be, it's going to be important during the first part of the millennium that we understand them, that we show them love, that we're not prejudiced toward them, and just basically have our arms open to them. There's been a lot of this lately. I think there's been more emphasis of this within the last few years than maybe there ever has been in the church. Not that the church has ever been unkind to any other faith, but there's just more emphasis on it now. So, all right, that's going to be it for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it. Make sure to leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below, and also make sure to share this, and I'll talk to you guys later.